Hey, Tristan, I've been checking out your vids and took a liking to your transhumanist stuff. First, I'd like to deal with transhumanism. Secondly, briefly to your problem with UFOs. And thirdly, to time travel. You're probably already thinking I'm some sort of crackpot, but give me a few more minutes and I promise you I'll prove to be at least somewhat rational. So here it is, a hodgepodge response to some of your clips. A potpourri, if you will, if not a pile of shit. So, here it is. Okay, transhumanism, here we go. I hate apocalyptic thinking too. I believe that hope evolves and that transhumanism might be part of that hope. I hate the fear of new technology and welcome a future where the lame can walk, the blind can see, and intelligence will be doubled or tripled or even quadrupled. Who knows, maybe even self-engineering our own evolution could lead to omniscience or a hive mind. Just as long as we retain the sense of self, I would be down with that. I just think we should do so with caution. It just concerns me that perhaps a new race evolved past ours might ultimately replace us. I mean, after all other transitional species that led to us Homo sapiens have died out. Following the trend, it'll happen to us too. So that scares me a little bit. This, of course, though, won't be like a showdown between cyborgs and humans. As you said, people will slowly integrate with the technology. Sometimes, though, this bothers me, and not because I fear it. For instance, the other day I saw a kid with headphones at a restaurant. He was having a meal with his grandfather. And the grandfather had obviously bought him a meal, and he was sitting right across from his grandfather, but he had, like, headphones on. He was just completely ignoring him. So they both sat in silence, and it was kind of weird, and it was like sometimes technology can distance us from each other and make our interactions more artificial. However, if both of these people were transhumanists, perhaps the kid would be able to listen to music and talk to his grandfather telepathically simultaneously. In 200 years' time, who knows? But at present, those headphones, again, can be a barrier to true human interaction. Anyways, keeping that in mind, technology is always a double-edged sword. You mentioned the implementation of nanotechnology. You know, people could also use nanotechnology to engineer some crazy super-duper virus even worse than the biological warfare we're capable of today. Nanotechnology could be capable of causing a pandemic the likes of which we have never seen. So I think what needs to accompany this technology is a wise application of it. Unfortunately, scientists like Oppenheimer, for instance, have often had a history of being rather unwise with what they create. I'm going to scroll down my notepad right now. That's my little weakness. Now I'll smoothly transition to the next topic, UFOs. Now, interestingly enough, earlier on in the interview, not interview, but video, you raised the question of why aliens haven't contacted us in publicly. I think when you said they'd wait for us to transition to a transhuman state, you answered your own question. If they made it obvious now, it would ruin many of our social institutions. The idea of human-based meaning would disintegrate. Religions would have to disappear in a day. That would lead to social unrest and chaos. I think any intelligent race would want to avoid such a scenario. Remember the War of the Worlds broadcast? You'd be that times 1,000,000. Or 6 billion. Your other concern of aliens was that they always seem to be spoken of in humanoid terms, and you claim this is anthropomorphism. It's not necessarily that. There is a scientific claim out there called convergent evolution. Perhaps you've heard of it. And it's the idea that life evolves similarly everywhere. Therefore, intelligent life being humanoid on other planets is not unlikely, but quite possible. Therefore, they either be humanoid or have an evolutionary ancestry that was humanoid in the past. Your other concern about UFOs was that most witnesses have an untrained eye. John Glenn said he saw a UFO when he was in outer space. You can see that in the Larry King interview on YouTube. I think Larry King is somewhat of a respectable source. But now for time travel. I do believe time travel is possible within a decade. I really do. But I think that the grandfather paradox has already been solved. According to the many worlds interpretation, it's not your universe, it's an alternate universe that you're entering, one that's very similar to ours. And if you believe that a universe expands in a deterministic fashion, there are similar DNA combinations in similar people to us walking around in that alternate universe. And that alternate universe might be so close to ours that the people would indeed be us. So when you run into your grandfather, and if you shot him, you'd still be present because it wasn't really your grandfather. Anyways, explanation to why we don't see time travelers. Because they don't wish to be detected. Any direct contact with us might change the future in some way that is unwanted. They wouldn't show a guy through a beam of light being transported in the middle of a street. They would just screw up our timeline too much, I think. So a time traveler, for all you know, could be a person sitting quietly next to you in Starbucks. Perhaps in the future, visiting such places in the past would be appealing. Just like some people who like watching wrestling now might go back to Roman times, might like to see a Colosseum match. All they'd have to do is transport to a private location, walk into the Colosseum, avoid as much human contact as possible, sit down, and quietly watch. Not necessarily a good thing, but I'm saying it's possible. As for time travel only being able to start after the machine has already been built, that is, I forget the name of the guy, but I saw an interview with him. He's trying to make a time machine based on lasers, and he wants to revisit his father. That was his original idea, but his father's dead, and he wants to revisit him, and he said that's impossible because unless you make the time machine at the time of the person's life, you wouldn't be able to visit him. But I think our technology might expand beyond that, but that might be just wishful thinking. So, anyways, there is my approach to UFOs, time travel, and transhumanism.